right, 22 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. When I was a kid, an advertisement, I don't remember if it was in a magazine or if I read it somewhere or it was a flyer that was, anyway, there was an advertisement for a Polaroid camera. Now, this goes back to the 60s, right? I had, my income in the 60s as a kid was from cutting grass or shoveling snow or something like that.
Delivering newspapers.
I didn't deliver newspapers. But anyways, and of course I had this this weekly allowance, whatever my mom gave me. I think it was 35 cents, whatever it was. Anyway, I begged my mom for this Polaroid camera that was advertised in this thing. And she, of course, didn't want me to just have it. She wanted me to pay for it. Mm-hmm. So I set up some kind of a payment arrangement, I suppose, with my mother. And so she ordered this camera. It came in the mail, and I had it for years. I loved my Polaroid camera. And it was called a Polaroid land camera. Mm-hmm. And my friend Robert Delancey said, "Does that mean you can only take pictures on land?" I said, "Yeah, that's what it means. You can't take pictures." I had no idea there was a guy named Edwin Land who invented it. Now, that was then. Of course, I knew way before this moment now that there was a guy. But what I never knew is that Edwin Land contributed way more than just the invention of the technology that made that instant photograph thing possible. And this next book we're going to talk about is written by Ronald K Fierstein, and it is an unbelievable study of this remarkable genius guy. The book is called A Triumph of Genius, Edwin Land, Polaroid, and the Kodak Patent War.
Yes, pretty awesome.
Wasn't Kodak related to Linda McCartney?
Eastman Kodak.
Was that?
Eastman.
Okay.
Yeah, she was Linda Eastman before she.
Oh, and Kodak wasn't really somebody's name, right? They made up that name or something?
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, guess who knows? Ronald Fierstein knows.
Yes,
Ronald is an attorney. He was on the team of litigators who represented Polaroid in its epic battle with Eastman Kodak over instant photography technology. Remember that when the Kodak had an instant camera?
Oh, yeah.
I never had one, but I remember it. And he also represents artists in the recording and theater industries. And this is my cup of tea. I love this stuff. I don't know if we're going to get to it, but Suzanne Vega, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Sean Colvin, Larry Whitler, Harvey Faint. I'm sorry. That's me. That's me. I'm sorry. I threw myself in. I didn't mean to do that.
That's all right. We'll write him a letter.
He's also the co-producer of...
Okay from you, Larry.
He's also the co-producer of Kinky Boots.
Kinky Boots on Broadway.
Which we're going to go see one day. Ronald Fierstein. Good morning, Ronald.
Good morning, Larry. You can call me Ron, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. And thank you for representing me as a recording artist. I appreciate that.
We'll send
no
you
problem.
We'll send you a card.
I didn't know anything about Edwin Land. And I was telling a true story. I really thought it was a land camera, meaning, well, you take pictures on land.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I was the same as you. Until I got involved in this lawsuit as a very young lawyer, I thought land referred to the ground. They were distinguishing it from an aerial camera or an underwater camera or something.
Right, exactly.
Much to my surprise, land was the father of the technology.
And in the book, you also, we always hear about polarized sunglasses, right? Mm-hmm. I never knew there was a connection. I just didn't even know what the word Polaroid meant.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, those are the same things that I discovered when I got involved in this lawsuit, that Edwin Land was a gentleman. He discovered instant photography, but long before he did that, decades before he did that, when he was 19 years old, he solved the problem that had eluded physicists for hundreds of years. Back in the 17th century, a fellow named Bartholin first observed the ability of some materials to take the glare out of light. But the materials that he had and observed were like big rocks and crystals and things like that. No one could come up with a practical material that you could turn into a product to take the glare out of light. And Land became obsessed with that as a teenager. I mean, when he was 19 years old, he solved the problem and figured out a way to create a very thin sheet of plastic that could do that. And based on that, he dropped out of Harvard, started a company, and long before he was, when he was in his 20s, that company was the equivalent of a $250 million company.
Wow.
Making sunglasses, camera lenses. It's a technology which, even today in our LCD screens, it's used. I mean, a very major invention long before he ever got involved in photography.
Is that right? So I don't know if this is a dumb question or not, but are all lenses on cameras polarized lenses, whether it's a Polaroid camera or not?
No. Most lenses have a clear glass lens, but then you can buy what's called a polarizing filter.
Oh, okay.
those are, your listeners who are photographers will know it's almost like two lenses in one, and you can turn it and take as little or as much glare out of the scene as you'd like. And it's a very useful tool for cameras, and it's obviously mostly the real, more advanced SLR cameras, single lens.
Wow, I never knew that. Robin's a photographer. You knew that, huh? You could
No,
turn that
I
thing?
never knew that. No, I just snapped the button.
All right. So, let's see. So the book has got so much in it, but I want to talk about the patent thing, the patent part of this. Was Linda Eastman related to the Eastman Kodak, or is that, you know who I'm talking about, right? Paul McCartney's...
Yeah, I do know Paul McCartney's wife. I frankly don't know. I don't know whether... Eastman was the founder of Kodak, and he... I don't know whether she was part of his family or not. The word Kodak was made up by Eastman when he needed a name for his company. But George Eastman was the founder of Kodak back in the early 19th century, I believe. And
all right, so
I don't know whether Linda was part of that family or not. But
Kodak
Ron, was.
We need to take a break, Ron. I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's take a break. And when we come back, we've got another good 12 minutes after the break that we can talk about this. And I know our listeners are anxious to hear about the legal battle. I'm anxious to find out what it was like in the courtroom with these giants of our American culture and all that. We'll be right back with Ronald Fierstein.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, times of clouds and sun with a couple of thunderstorms around this afternoon and this evening. The high today 89 to 93. And partly to mostly cloudy later tonight, though 74 to 78. Clouds will limit sunshine tomorrow. Look for a couple of thunderstorms, especially in the afternoon. The high 86 to 90. And for Saturday, clouds and limited sun with a shower and thunderstorm or two around. High 83 to 87. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lunder.
Chip, what are the two most important reasons people buy from Ford Lincoln of Ocala in Village Ford of Bellevue?
Easy. They've shopped everywhere else and found out that we have the selection and the price that can't be beat.
Exactly. People buy from us because they know when it comes to new Fords, no one comes close to our huge inventory of every model, equipment package, and color Ford has to offer.
And when it comes to price, Ford Lincoln of Ocala or Village Ford of Bellevue is unbeatable. Backed by our low price guarantee in writing.
We invite you to visit our websites at FordofOcala.com or MyVillageFord.com. View our complete inventory of new and certified pre-owned Fords. Then check out the long list of positive reviews from our customers who have purchased or had their vehicles serviced with us.
Although selection and price are important, you also receive the benefits of a courteous factory-trained certified staff that just makes doing business with Ford Lincoln of Ocala or Village Ford of Bellevue a real joy.
Come in for the selection.
Come in for the price.
Come to Ford Lincoln of Ocala or Village Ford of Bellevue, your family of Ford dealerships where we've got what it takes.
If you're anything like I was, the thought of getting older was the last thing on your mind. But here we are. For me, it started slowly. The lack of energy, never being in the mood. And when I was, I could never perform at my best. I tried the pills and other treatments with minimal results, and all but given up on my sex life. Then I found the doctors at New Male Medical Center. Wow, they made a new male out of me. Feel like I'm 25 again. I have renewed vigor, so much more energy, and no longer worry about my performance. New Male treated me like my situation was one of a kind, with a custom treatment plan that really works. I feel great. They can create one for you too. It does not matter if you suffer from low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, or just want to last longer. New Male will help you.
Call New Male Medical Center today at 352-404-4779. 352-404-4779. That's 352-404-4779. It will change your life. 352-404-4779.
You've got a garden and we've got a show for you called You've Got a Garden with your host, Master Gardener Carol Ann Baldwin. Carol Ann answers your questions about your flowers, your veggies, your grass, your trees, even questions about your bugs. And she's only on WOCA, so don't miss Carol Ann Baldwin and You've Got a Garden each Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on WOCA The Source.
We are The Source, WOCA, News, Talk, Sports, and more.
All right, 12 minutes before 11 o'clock. Ronald K Fierstein is on the phone. He's an attorney. He was on the team of litigators who represented Polaroid in their battle, the patent battle with Eastman Kodak over the instant photography technology. And the book is titled The Triumph of Genius, and Edwin Land Polaroid and the Kodak Patent War. It's a huge book, by the way.
It is. It's a great read.
And I just found it on the website that was provided to me. It is the AmericanBar.org website, and you have it as Shop ABA. So Shop ABA is an American Bar Association, right?
.org.
Shop, yeah, .org. And I found the book on there. Ron, thank you for allowing me to call you Ron, first of all. Are you in New York, did you say?
Manhattan, he said.
Oh, you're in Manhattan? Okay.
Well, I'm not physically. I live about 40 miles north. My office is about 40 miles north of Manhattan.
Okay.
I live in Chappaqua, where ex-President Clinton and.
Oh, okay. All right. So, how did you? Okay. So, I remember when Kodak had this camera, and I said, "Gosh, that's like the Polaroid camera." I guess they're sharing their technology now, but they weren't sharing it at all. Did they accomplish the instant photograph with the same technology, or did they come up with their own? How did that work?
Well, it turned out at the end of the day that they used some of Polaroid's technology, and which is why Polaroid sued them for patent infringement and ended up winning. And Kodak, after the battle was finished, had to take its cameras and film out of the stores. It was a very dramatic legal case and quite a historic result, because it really pointed to the value of patents. Because small companies like Polaroid, it really was David and Goliath kind of thing. They rely on patent protection in order to save their technology and their innovation.
Was Polaroid first? Not just with the instant camera, but I mean with the cameras. Period.
With instant photography, Polaroid was first. And what makes this story really fascinating, and it's a major theme of the book, is that Polaroid and Kodak had a 60-year relationship. And it's almost like an opera. It went from mentor-protege to arch-enemies over the course of decades. Polaroid, frankly, wouldn't exist without Kodak's help. In the early days, Kodak was the first customer for Land's polarizer, which they turned into camera filters, as we discussed. And then when Land invented his one-step photographic system, Kodak manufactured the negatives for every Polaroid film, starting in the 40s all the way well into the 60s.
Is that right?
And it was only when Polaroid started to get really popular, and they came out with a new one, the SX70, a square photograph. I think all your listeners probably think of when they hear the word Polaroid. It's that square one with the white border, a little wire at the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, when Polaroid came out with that one, Kodak for the first time thought they might have something that could actually challenge their dominance of amateur photography. And so Kodak said to Polaroid, even though we've been friends and making a lot of money together for decades, we're only going to help you with your new film if you let us sell some in our own yellow boxes and compete with you. But Polaroid was scared to death of that, so Polaroid said no, and the two companies went their separate ways. Polaroid put out theirs. Yeah.
What's interesting now is that Polaroid cameras still exist. There's a Polaroid Cube available right now, and of course we don't use film at all anymore. Mm-hmm. So all of that, I don't even know if it applies anymore.
There is a new Polaroid now. The original Polaroid actually went bankrupt. It's a very long story and it's told in my book. But the brand, if you will, survives, and it's now being licensed, and there's a new company making a new line of Polaroid cameras, which, also deliver to you a print in your hand. I mean, that's the one thing that Polaroid did that none of our digital cameras or our phones can do, which is deliver a print, a piece of paper with an image on it, in your hand within a minute or so of snapping the shutter.
Now, how did Howard Rogers fit into the equation with Dr. Land?
Well, Howard Rogers was one of Land's closest collaborators, and he was, when Polaroid sued Kodak, there were 10 patents involved in the lawsuit at the end of the day, and Land was the inventor on some of them, but his friend and colleague Howard Rogers was an inventor on some of the other important patents, and so they were both star witnesses during the trial, although Land, being much more famous and well known, was really the centerpiece.
And when you had to work with each of these gentlemen, were you in awe of them, that you might be afraid that you might not get all the facts right? Because they were giants.
Well, absolutely, and it's when you're in a difficult situation, you're so immersed in it that you don't have time to worry. You just work as hard as you possibly can and put in as big an effort as you possibly can muster. and hope that it all turns out right. And I think that was my mindset back then, is that I didn't have time to think about the big picture or worry about it. I just worked my tail off and completely immersed. It was during that period of several years, actually, it was pretty much like there was nothing else going on the planet.
Yeah, I bet. So did you
except for that, and the other lawyers working on it as well. I was, just one young member on a team of like 12 or 13 lawyers who worked on this for years.
So on the surface, it just looks like, okay, you guys had it first, so you win. But obviously, deeper than that, there's the science behind it. As an attorney, did you have to familiarize yourself and actually understand the science of all of this in order to be able to argue on behalf of Polaroid?
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of the art of being a patent attorney, is that you need to have some familiarity, or at least an ability to learn about technology. In this case, it was photographic science, cameras, and film. But patent lawyers deal with technology all the time because it's technology that are the facts of your case. I mean, when you're a lawyer, you have to, deal with the facts of your case, and sometimes it's a car accident, and sometimes it's, a criminal case. But in patent law, it's technology.
So was there one thing that you and the other attorneys discovered that said, oh my gosh, here it is. This is the breaking point. This is the fact that we needed?
Well, I mean, there were a lot of those things. I mean, particularly because during a case like this, you get to search for and look at your opponent's documents, their own internal documents, and we found, documents in Kodak's files that were inconsistent with positions that they were taking in the case. And many of those documents really undermined Kodak when it came to the judge looking at all the evidence and trying to decide who was right and who was wrong.
One of the things, when we look back in history, we realize that some people who are household names, well, let me say it another way. Some people who are not household names probably should be, and you have to wonder, did they just not have an understanding of PR? Like everybody knows the name Steve Jobs. Everybody knows Thomas Edison. Here's a better example. Thomas Edison, hardly anybody knows of Tesla. They're starting to hear about him because they named the car Tesla. So everybody says, well, who's Tesla? And obviously a guy who contributed a lot to the world we live in now. And that's the same thing with Land. He is kind of hard to say who is he. I can't even visualize what he looks like in my mind, so I'll have to look him up.
Larry, that's exactly one of the main reasons I went to write the book, because I believe he deserves a more prominent place in that pantheon of great American technologists. I mean, Land was second to Edison on the list of American inventors when he passed away, with 535 patents to his name.
Wow.
And in addition to that, there's a whole, and it's in my book, but Land did all kinds of work for our government in secret, top secret stuff for the military and for the CIA. There's a great story he worked for 6 American presidents and consulted with them, starting with FDR. When Dwight Eisenhower took the White House, he met with a small group of scientists, Land included, that were advising the presidents on technological matters, and he said to them, I'm really worried about the Russians. I don't really know what they're up to. Land stepped forward and said, well, why don't we take a look? And out of that came the U-2 spy plane. Land put together the resources and the tech and the people to come up with the U-2 spy plane, and he made those kinds of contributions in top secret to America over the course of his life. And there was even a point in the Cold War, I have a great quote from one of his colleagues who said, one of the reasons Land became a bit of a recluse is because the Russians would love to get their hands on him. And so he stepped up his security and really stayed out of the public light for the most part, except once a year when he'd get up in front of his Polaroid stockholders to introduce some new product, the same exact technique that Steve Jobs observed and copied from him. Steve Jobs admired Land a great deal.
Does his family, does Land's family, are they familiar with the book? I'm guessing they're very happy that you did the book.
It's a strange dynamic. Land was very private, and his family was very private, and they, in fact, will not correspond with me. I've tried several times to get in touch, and I'm talking about his immediate family. His 2 daughters are alive, and I've tried to get in touch with them, but unsuccessfully. I am in touch with his nephew, his sister's son, and some other family members, but his immediate family have really always been reclusive.
This is a 672-page book. It is bigger, I don't know, than the Bible, but it's bigger than most dictionaries. And I have a copy of it right here, a hardcover copy of the book that we're talking about. It's called The Triumph of Genius, Edwin Land, Polaroid, and the Kodak Patent War, Ronald K Fierstein. Have I been pronouncing your name correctly, I hope?
It's all fine. Thank you very much.
Did I say it right?
Yep.
Fierstein? Okay.
That's good. Fierstein is good.
All right. So if you want the one that was sent to us, call me right now, 622-9622. You can have the one that was sent to us. The rest of us have to go buy it. I went to the American Bar Association website, which is shopaba.org, and I found it on the...
Well, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, or, maybe even your local independent bookstore. So it's widely available through all the normal channels, and I have a website, triumphofgenius.com, that you can learn
easy.
more about.
Okay, triumphofgenius.com. And real quick, I think I just want to say this, that I think Edwin Land's legacy is different now because of the book, or at least it will be when the book starts to really make its way across America, I think, or across the world. So I think you've contributed to it. I hope his daughters realize that you've done a wonderful thing for their family.
I hope so.
Let me give this one away. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
This is Jim.
Jim, you're going to love the book. It'll be waiting for you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Ron, for being on the air with us today.
All right. I appreciate it, Larry. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Bye.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. Some members of the president's cabinet getting a grilling on Capitol Hill over the nuclear deal with Iran. Senator Bob Corker, chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, speaking before the testimony.
Not unlike a hotel guest that leaves only with a hotel bathrobe on his back. I believe you've been fleeced.
Many of the administration, like National Security Advisor Susan Rice, say they believe when Congress fully reviews the agreement, they'll be on board.
This is a good and strong deal that will verifiably prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon.
Secretary of State John Kerry, the Energy Secretary, and the Treasury Secretary will be speaking. 2 teens in custody after the killings of 5 people in a Tulsa area home. Authorities say they were alerted when someone dialed 911 but didn't speak. Fox News. We report. You decide.
Yeah, let me guess what you want. You want a truck where safety is first and foremost. One built with a high-strength military-grade aluminum alloy body that's up to 700 pounds lighter. That handles better than ever.